Hello, everyone. This is an unconventional little message from us. We are introducing you to Robert Ansin, who is the director of Healing Hearts, Changing Minds. And we really wanted to have this chat. Robert is a friend and supporter of ASA and has been really supportive of my work over the years. And I read that his organization has this request for proposals at the moment. And it really is an amazing project. What they do is, well, I'll hand over to Robert in a minute to tell you more, but really what this organization does is looks for communities within the psychedelic space and really does the work of listening and understanding this community and their needs in order to galvanize and support and create resource for the people doing work that really is valuable and wonderful work. So Robert, I'll hand over to you. I'd love for you to tell our community about your previous project and also the one that you're looking for proposals for now, because I know that there's another month until your funding needs, yeah, there's a month deadline before funding allocations start. So over to you and thank you for being here.
Roz, it is such an honor to be here. And I have to tell you that, as I'm sure a lot of your members will appreciate, um, I feel like I have something called imposter syndrome. Like, here I am with Roz Watts being recorded for Roz's community. When I had my awakening back in 2019, part of what led me to that experience was, learning about psychedelics and science and those doing the good work. And you were part of that group of people who I saw online as a stranger and just said, wow. And here I am, and you're a friend. And I think what you're doing is amazing. So, yes, imposter syndrome. I love it. It's great. Um, so the short of kind of my long Roz is I was a real estate developer, um, barely made it through the Great Recession, got kicked around a whole bunch, and then decided around 2015 to really try something new. And I had no idea what that was. Started reading about things that sort of little Bobby cared about, like, what are we really doing here? What's going on? Like, trying to find some answers. And I just started paying attention more to signs, just little sort of signs that seemed more than just coincidence. And that process led me to first finding something called near-death experiences, people who were experiencing these really profound um, kind of otherworldly experiences, having sort of flatlined or something like that, and coming back and being transformed and sort of finding their little one again and leaning into that love of that sort of innocence. And I wanted that, but I didn't want to, come that close to the edge. And then I started reading, about people like you who are studying these psychedelics. And so that led me to read the Pollen book in 2018. And that made all the sense in the world and convinced me that it was safe. And I did my homework and I found a retreat center that seemed to be doing things the right way in Jamaica. And I went to Jamaica in November of 2019. And on the third and final journey, I had my awakening. And I still get goosebumps, all over my body when I think about it, as your members will certainly understand. Um, One of a million important takeaways from that experience for me was to understand that this kind of healing is available to us while we're alive on this beautiful planet. And it just sort of re-engaged my entrepreneurial essence. And I got excited about how might I help other people have the kind of powerful awakening or rebirth that I had had. And as a business person, I really wanted to have as much impact as I could. So I started thinking about the kind of communities who I feel could really benefit from this. And and how could we make something that could become viral? And so the image that sort of I had was, this is right before COVID, and we all learned about how devastatingly intelligent viruses are. And so in my mind, it was kind of like, now that I knew that this existed, how can we maybe identify the leaders in this world, the change agents, the people who I call angels, who were born to be angels, but maybe not able to be their full angel selves because of the stresses and strains of being human. How do we identify them and when they're ready, um, provide a path to the kind of healing that we know exists? And then once they are on that healing path, how do we empower them to return to their communities to spread that goodness, those ripples of love and healing? And so I didn't really care which kind of community we started with. To me, we're all one, we're all the same. But as a business person, I'm a big believer in sort of starting small, improving a model, and staying within your lane. And so, of all of the sort of disenfranchised communities that I sort of was thinking about, the veterans and the healthcare workers and the minority community, and so many groups have been disproportionately sort of um, hurt by our societies. It was the queer community that really sort of um, stood out for me because of my own personal background. My dad was outed in the 1970s as a gay man. That was the meteor that hit the Ansin family. My dad has always been sort of the sun that my family revolved around. Um, I consider my dad a true bodhisattva, that special, special soul that could have joined the light but came back to help us. Um, and I watched him. He was my sort of shining light. And he embraced his new community and he helped save lives back in the 1980s with this AIDS epidemic and HIV. And then more recently, my oldest child came out first as gay and then came out as non-binary. And through my child's eyes, I learned that, my dad's generation did a lot to help the queer community, but there was a lot more work to be done. So I said, okay, let's see if we can identify the leaders in the queering psychedelics world. And the model that we took, Roz, was we sort of from the get-go said, we're not the experts. This model is going to be about allyship, and it's going to be about partnering. That's something that I learned when I had my mushroom experience was it's all about community. It's all about helping one another. It's all about the power of togetherness. And so we said, okay, who are the leaders in the queering psychedelics world? We identified them, and then we went on a listening tour. And we just listened and we said, we're not the experts. How can we support the work that you angels are doing? Simple as that. And that took months. And after months, we found that there was a consensus that in that case, what was needed was more queer psychedelic facilitators. Kind of like if you want to get more traumatized queer people to even consider these things, then you need to have somebody who comes from that same sort of trauma background, their same neighborhoods, their same issues. Kind of like duh, but it wasn't obvious to us. And so we did. We developed with them. We developed a request for proposals that basically looked to identify programs that were training queer facilitators. And the parameters included things like being inclusive, being diverse, um, but being transparent and wanting to ally. Not everybody in this space, as really wants to ally and sort of lean into their hearts. So we went for it and we said, okay, let's make available $300,000. And we had no idea how many proposals we were going to get. A donor stepped up and said, I have a child who's also sort of unclear about gender issues, so I'd like to donate 200,000. And so we had $500,000. And we thought maybe we'd get 15 to 20 proposals. We got about 50 proposals, Roz, and really good proposals from amazing organizations. And it was a really hard process to select the best. But we did. We selected 6 organizations, and that was our initial group of grantees. And they ranged from sort of brand names that you've heard of. Berkeley was one of our initial grantees. Heroic Hearts was one of our initial grantees. Naropa was was one of our initial grantees. But we also said, let's work with some organizations that people haven't heard of, that are small, that don't have huge budgets to respond to grant proposals, and are just somehow getting it done. And so we were proud to select some incredibly good small organizations. Um, One was called Access to Doorways, which is doing amazing work out on the West Coast, and another is called Integrate, that works with ketamine. And then we rolled up our sleeves and we said, let's work together. And ultimately, that work resulted in our impact report, which we published. We're a big believer in sort of showing people what we've done. So it's not saying this is what we think can be done, but really kind of gathering data, right? Qualify, as much data as we can from what we're doing, so that we can share that with the overall industry. What's working, what didn't work, what is worthy of additional investment. We had a convening where we had all of our grantees together with other leaders in the queering psychedelic space. We gathered out in the 1440 out in the redwood forests,
Mm.
um, and we called it Caring for the Caregivers. And we just said, you folks are angels. We're amazed at what you do. Let us just love on you a little bit. And we had some programming where we had some workshops and we had some, but it was really about just getting together and, ironically, us introducing some of these angels to one another, um, and sort of proving that there is enormous power in just connection and collaboration. Um, After all of this money we spent, I don't know that the convening wasn't, you know, the most valuable thing we did, ironically,
Mm.
just a gathering of
Yeah.
like-minded people. We then, once, these are 12-month programs, once we started to sort of wrap up our first phase, our senior team, small little foundation senior team, got together and we said, what's next for us? Um, and during this process, I had lost my dad. My beautiful shining star had succumbed to end stage Parkinson's. And I watched as there's the goosebumps, this team of angels led by his husband just loved on my dad, and and helped him with everything that we all take for granted, just the daily tasks of living. And I was just blown away by his husband and the care team that he put together, and these strangers who came together who were helping guide my dad towards his next phase of life, the other side. And one of the guys who had helped me find my way to psychedelics was Ram Dass. And,
Mm.
Ram Dass is one of his favorite, one of my favorite Ram Dass quotes was, we're all just walking each other home. And that just really rang true. And so we decided to um, expand our sort of focus from just the queer community to um, psychedelic end of life, but also consciousness. And having been in this now for a few years, I've found it interesting that so many sort of scientists are hesitant to admit that this is a spiritual experience, and I'm not at all. My experience was absolutely spiritual. And I didn't know that even, what that would have meant then, as your members do now. But absolutely it's spiritual. Absolutely. I had my moment with my creator, what I call my George Harrison, my sweet Lord moment. And so, like the first round, we said, we're not the experts. Let's find who the experts are in psychedelic end of life care. That's a much bigger category. Let's sort of define what that means. And let's go talk to them, and let's really sort of take our lead from them. So we did. For 6 months. We interviewed about 24 leaders in palliative care, in hospice, in doula services, in spirituality, in religion, um, in right to try, education, communications, really a wide swath. And developed this request for proposals that we're calling Walking Each Other Home. And the response has been just staggering, really, really beautiful. We now have a work product behind us. We actually have a foundation. The first time we said we think this model can work, and this time we can say it does work. We know that it works because we've done it before, and we know that there are some of these angels who do want to ally, who do want to collaborate. And so we went out to PS25. We had a gathering where we said, come meet with the team. And we invited our past grantees to come as well. And it was a beautiful moment where we, you know, a number of our grantees stood up to talk from the heart about what their experience was like and what their programs were able to accomplish. Um, and we also had some potential grant donors come to this meeting as well, because we wanted them to hear that, look, from the donor side of things, I feel like sometimes there might be a sense of, the golden rule, right? We make the rules, we have the gold. And our attitude is no, that's really not the case. The experts are the ones doing the work. They're the ones who know what the market needs, and we're just helping to support them or catalyze their work. And I'm so thrilled that some of my mentors in this space from the donor side pulled me aside after the meeting to say, wow, we haven't seen this. We haven't seen maybe um, this model that really sort of turns that top-down model upside down. And I think it's needed. I really do. I feel like we need to democratize philanthropy, psychedelic philanthropy. So, so Roz, we're in the phase now where we're really getting the word out. Um, as you know, I consider you and Acer as the gold standard in psychedelic integration. Your members know that. Um, and all that means for me is, I tell people healing hearts is my integration of my awakening.
Mm.
So I'm able to do this work and see and feel and touch that divinity through this work. I don't need to keep doing the medicine. I don't need to continue to sort of run after a feeling. I accept that you have to do the work, and I accept that every day it could be a good day, it could be a challenging day. One of the reasons I love your program is I came away from Jamaica with a real sense that we monkeys need to think more like trees. And that's
Mm.
sort of one of my mantras now is think like a tree.
Hmm. And
Uh,
that's also a Ram Dass mantra as well. He said that we should look at each other as trees. So there's
yeah,
another, yeah.
it's so true. It really is. And that means our timeline. That means, of course, we now know what science has proven about how trees create community
Mm.
through these fungal networks and the strength in that community.
Yeah.
Um, Beautiful, just beautiful. So I believe that we are lagging way behind trees in terms of evolutionary intelligence,
Mm.
and I just don't need to prove it. I just know it in my heart. And so we try to lean into, what would a tree do? What would a forest do?
Mm.
And so we are now at the phase where we're really encouraging people to apply. Um, it is, it would be unusual for somebody not to qualify, frankly, for one of these grants, given how broad it is. So
Mm.
the category is psychedelic end of life care and spirituality, but there are 10 subcategories that I mentioned. So it's who's doing the best work in palliative care and hospice.
Mm.
There's more and more, as you know, there's more and more evidence that these therapies can be a game changer in terms of reducing existential fear in those that are getting these horrific diagnoses and their families.
Mm.
And how do we how do we get this into universities? How do we develop and promote curriculum We've been really impressed with a program called UPEP, which is a
Mm,
marvelous. You're familiar with it?
yeah. Great. Fantastic.
Remarkable,
Yeah.
remarkable. And it is growing so quickly. They have now, I want to say like 50 universities, including some
Yeah.
historically Black colleges and universities that are just doing remarkable things, which is kind of like duh, but it's the definition of moving upstream, right?
Mhm.
How does an oncologist know about these therapies? How does an administrator of a hospice unit know that these exist? It's all about education first, especially when the powers to be have really, I believe, created such a toxic feeling around anything having to do with these particular therapies.
Mhm.
So hospice, palliative care, education, right to try.
Yeah.
There's wonderful efforts now underway. So we want to collaborate with some other donors and with some attorneys and with some organizations to really sort of prod the governments to allow um, some of these therapies to be used when they can be most effective. We know that they're safe. And again, I'm not a clinician as you are, but the science seems to be there that these are safe. And so long as they're used in a proper way with proper guidelines, proper guardrails. Um, so our application phase goes until August 22nd.
Mm.
We encourage people to apply. If you have any questions, we have a psychologist on board who's really running the show for us, Dr. Alex Belser,
Oh,
who,
wonderful. Yes.
yeah,
Oh,
Alex is wonderful.
great.
Alex is
Yeah.
just sort of, and this is not about Robert Ansin and my sort of family deciding. We don't even get involved with the review process until the very end. So we really are trying to practice gold standard in everything we do, and that's transparency, that's best practice, and ultimately we want to identify the best teams. I look at
Mm,
this just like venture capital, right? Unfortunately, we don't have unlimited amount of capital. So we
mm,
want to identify the best teams first, doing the most potentially impactful work and empower them and catalyze them.
mm,
Um, and um, and we're hoping, Roz, and this is something we really haven't talked about yet, but we're hoping that once we can identify how many applications we've received from how many different organizations doing, in how many different sort of subcategories, might there be interest from donors to help us raise additional dollars. So our
mm,
goal is we hope to raise more than 500,000 to be able to do more. We know that there's far more demand than there is supply of dollars. So we're hoping to make the case with some of our donors that um, we've done the work, we've done the vetting. All of your dollars will go towards these grantees.
mm,
And it's not a set it and forget it. Our model is really the work begins once we select you as a grantee. You're agreeing to partner with us. You're agreeing to come to convenings. You're agreeing to um, ultimately teach this model to other potential grantees.
yeah.
Um, and so far, it seems to be working. We're having fun, Roz. Um,
Amazing.
and so, yeah, for your community, it's uh, really, I encourage people to find out more. It's real money. We're trying to lower the bar as much as we can. This is not an exercise in fill out 50,000 forms. Everything's online. We use a platform called Submittable, and we're always available. If you have any questions at all, um, again, the bottom line is we're trying to catalyze the best, beautiful humans doing the best work to help, in this case, to help people walk others home and
Mm,
and and give them their lives back.
mm,
That's important. It's in my mind, um, I feel like so many of our best and brightest stop living because of fear.
mm,
And if we can address that fear in a maybe more effective way than by medicating them and really giving them their lives back to say, you're still alive. You're still blessed with life, and you can contribute to helping others. That's what we want. That's what we want to do.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful vision. Such a generous project. And yet, anyone listening, we'll post the link to the platform so that it's really easy for you to apply. And you've got a month. So did you say August can you remind me of the date again?
August 22nd.
August 22nd. So yeah, everyone, if you know anybody else this might be relevant for, please send this on to them. And yeah, let's get the word out with Healing Hearts, Changing Minds. Thank you so much, Robert. And
Thank you,
yeah,
Roz.
soon. And hopefully you'll come back and tell us how this one goes as well. So
I
yeah,
promise it. I
maybe
promise I will. Thank
we can
you.
have a regular check-in about all of your beautiful projects and hear how they've all gone. Thank you for your work.
Thank you, Roz.
Thank you.